So next we have our keynote speaker, Mr. John Alexander. Mr. John Alexander has defied the odds and climbed Mount Everest, and he did so while guiding his blind friend, John Weinmayer, to join him at the summit of the 29,035-foot peak. For reference, that's 6,505 Mr. Ingalls stacked one on top of another. He survived a 150-foot fall in the Himalayas while preparing for the Mount Everest hike, and he gives credit to his team and his faith for helping him to overcome his doubts and fears and become an integral part in this historic ascent. He has reached the highest point in 6 of 7 continents and led someone with a disability to join him at the summit of each, redefining the limits of what a human being can achieve. He knows the location of every secret mountaintop monastery and has received wisdom from monks such as Mr. Miyagi, Master Splinter, and the Kung Fu Panda. The challenges he has faced and helped others to face are not so different from the challenges we face in our everyday lives. We all have Everests that we climb. Our grandparents walked 7.5 miles to school uphill in a snowstorm every day. And Eric speaks to the same principles of courage, faith, teamwork, and integrity to help us climb our Everests. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Eric Alexander.
Well, thank you very much. I am honored to be here with all of you and to share a little bit of my story and my history. And as I do, I just think about my identity, who I am, because my identity is really not wrapped up in this mountain or the climbs I've done. I hope that it's more wrapped up in my character and who I am. When adults meet each other, they shake hands. You know, you've graduated from college. The first thing you say is your name. The second thing you say is, well, what do you do? Well, I always have a hard time answering that because I've done so many different things, and I'm looking forward to the next chapter of my life. Life is like a book, and as the chapters unfold, it can take you into a different course, a different trajectory. And so I want to lay out that challenge to you. When you meet somebody new for the first time, your same age, you know, what's the first thing to roll off your tongue after your name? Is it, I'm a student at Glenwood High School? Or is it something else that maybe speaks more to your character, to your person, to your dreams, to your passions? Well, I am a man of faith. I am a husband. I'm a father. I've got twin daughters. And I love, more than anything, talking about these things. But I have been around the world. I've climbed the highest peaks. I've learned from Kung Fu Panda and Mr. Miyagi many great things. But more than that, it's the inspiration I've gained from the most unlikely of people as I've climbed. People with disabilities. Climbing with my good friend Eric, who's completely blind. After he went blind, he went to school. He studied at Boston College. He's in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. He still had goals and plans, and actually he wanted to be a teacher. He set off and he became a math teacher. One of the obstacles that he encountered was that when he would ask the class to answer a question, they would raise their hand. He's blind. He had to work around that one, and he did, and he became a very accomplished teacher, but life then steered him in another direction. It was a passion towards adventure and climbing, and I got to know him in that phase of life, and we set this goal of climbing Mount Everest together. He invited me, and when he did, word got out, and people told him, Eric, you're going to die. A blind person can't climb Mount Everest. And they told me he's going to take you with him. Our response was, well, that's great, Mom and Dad, but really, we have what it takes. It was people close to us that were concerned, but it was also the elite Himalayan veterans, people who'd been there, who had done that, who had seen it, and who knew. And they were experts. And do you listen to the experts? Well, yeah, I think there's wisdom in it, but then you also have to take a step back and say, sure, they're experts, but they don't even know me. They don't know Eric. They don't know he's a legitimate athlete, that he's got a long climbing resume. They're just basing this on a perception. And I imagine that many of you have been on the receiving end of that kind of judgment and perception, that, no, you can't do that, or you can't do this. Sometimes that's wisdom, and you should listen to it. Other times when you know yourself and your talents and your skills, your abilities, your team that supports you, you know it's the right thing to do and it's the next step you should take. Well, that's what Mount Everest was for us. And we had a passion for climbing, and we had the experience to back it up, and so we could take that. Think about climbing with somebody who lacks that passion. Maybe you've just arrived in the Swiss Alps and you want to take on one of the great north faces of the Alps, a 3,000-foot wall of granite. And you lack a little bit of experience, and so you hire a guide, and you're hoping that this guide is passionate about climbing, so much so that he's gained the necessary skills and talents to lead you up this face. Well, what would you think if you showed up? Would you mind coming up here for a second? Just grabbing a seat on this ledge next to me? All right. Because we're about to climb this. How are you feeling?
Nervous?
Me too. I've actually never climbed anything quite like that before. And I'm kind of tired. I didn't sleep very well last night. I was out partying quite a bit. Still a little hungover, if you know what I mean. I think I'd prefer if you could take the lead. Is that okay?
No.
I figured you'd say that. So I brought along this extension cord because I forgot the rope. Can you tie in with that?
No.
No?
No.
Well, I always say if you can't tie a knot, tie a lot. Does that make you feel better?
No.
Well, all right, maybe we should give up on that idea. Thanks for coming up. So, yeah, I think that's about how it would go if you had a guide who was kind of maybe a little out of it. Instead, when we go for a climb, something like this, we want someone who is there to serve, who's got their rest, who's invested, who is there to support the climb and do everything they can to make it possible. And so that's what I want to share today, is that it's not necessarily following your dreams, follow your passion. It's bringing that passion with you, no matter what it is you end up doing or wherever life takes you. You might chart a course for your dreams and your plans, and they may not happen. They may, and I hope they do. But when they don't, I hope you can redirect with it and bring passion to whatever it is you do. I had an opportunity to go to Peru and trek 35 miles to the ancient city of Machu Picchu. It was awesome. We went over 15,000-foot passes. We went across creeks and streams. We would walk on these narrow trails with precipitous drops. And it took us about 7 days. And we had 9 blind high school students who completed that trek with us. At the beginning, they didn't know that this could happen, they trained a little bit. They had no idea that their life wasn't really about hiking. It wasn't their passion. The scariest part of it was that they had 9 other high schoolers as their guides who would sometimes tune out with their earbuds and not pay attention to the person following them. When all of a sudden the trail would turn from here and go here, the blind person might, miss. Thankfully, we travel in 3s, so the third person behind can redirect, give a pat on the rear, and send them up the right way. But the amazing thing was that when we got to Machu Picchu, not that they could explore it and put their hands over these stones which had been carved out by the Incas centuries before. It was what they had gained in the sense of camaraderie and teamwork and vision, and catching a vision for what was possible for their lives, one that they didn't have before. In fact, after Machu Picchu, 4 of them surrounded me on the train. I thought to beat me up with their canes. But instead they said, we want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. We want to stand on top of that 19,000-foot mountain. Well, I saw these 4 blind students make it to the roof of Africa. Again, giving them a passion and a purpose and a vision for what they might accomplish. And one of them said, after this, I think anything's possible. I want to be the first blind person in space. He hasn't gotten there yet, but he did get an internship with NASA. Pretty awesome. Maybe it'll happen. Keep your eyes peeled. I know he is. One of the other students said, I want to start a blind racing school. What do you mean by racing? He said, I want to go to the Bonneville Salt Flats and get blind students to drive cars. As long as they go straight, they can go as fast as they want. I loved his vision. I loved his passion for wanting to do something different to help kids accomplish goals and dreams that they may not have ever seen possible for their lives. Well, from this experience, it's turned into many others, and I've learned from these people, each of them, of what's possible for my own life. But perhaps none greater than my best friend Joseph, who's in this picture. Joseph was my climbing partner. He was my prayer partner. We'd get together and we'd serve our communities, and I call him my best friend. However, I think there were about 100 people in the Vail Valley that called Joseph their best friend because of who he was and the character that he had. Well, Joseph was an avid snowboarder, and he was an expert. And he would go into the backcountry. If you know Vail, you know that there's this area called the East Vail Chutes. It's steep terrain, some of it fairly extreme. But Joseph was very confident, and he grew maybe a little bit too comfortable with this terrain. And he started making decisions, bad decisions. And that is that he could go alone. And that he could get home more quickly if he would go alone, and he didn't need a partner, and he could then forget the bus and get to work on time and squeeze in 1 or 2 extra runs. Well, one day Joseph didn't make it home. He didn't make it to work. He had descended this chute alone, and well, it was the next morning that I went out with my friends on the ski patrol, and I saw my best friend at the bottom of a 40-foot cliff. He had landed upside down. He couldn't get out. He suffocated, he froze, and he died. I remember frantically digging him out with my friends and holding his frozen body, and I felt like I had stinging needles in my face, and I was so angry. I was angry at him for making that decision. When we do things like that, when we do things like chart this next course in our lives, we shouldn't go alone. We need to invite people in. We need to seek help, seek counsel, get advice, get support. That's what this event is all about. It's to help kind of generate thinking and ideas and to help you along so that you're not going alone, that you can make the best decisions for who you are and the skills you've been created with. Well, I was angry at Joseph, and I went to his memorial service. I met his wonderful family, who are still great friends to this day. But when I saw him laying in his casket, I turned my head to the left and I saw his yearbook. And it was open to this page that said at the top, "What are you going to do after you graduate?" And the answers from the other students were pretty normal. I'm going to get this job, or I'm going to go on vacation, I'm going to go to school. And then there was Joseph's answer. It stood out. Because what he said is, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a difference in the world around me. And years later, that's exactly what Joseph was doing. That's exactly who he was and how he was living. His character played out in everything he did, the jobs he had, the people he met. The very first time I met him, he felt like my best friend because he cared. And I think as you're pursuing a job, a career, that next step, these are all stepping stones that build to something greater. It's not like you have to achieve your dream right away. Let it unfold, but pursue it with passion and bring your character into the mix. Virtues and values, those things that matter and that are important, because that will help to dictate where you go and where you end up. Instead of being that burned out guide, you'll be someone who can truly lead someone to mountaintops, real or figurative. Well, I got invited to go to Everest, and after my friend's death, it was actually just 2 months away. And in that morning, I thought, there's no possible way. I had just recovered from a near fatal accident a few months before. Now this, and now to go climb to the top of the world with someone who's blind, I thought, forget it. That's just one dream I'm going to have to let go of. Not possible. My friend Eric was talking to me, and he said, I still want you to be a part of this climb. Would you? Well, I gained inspiration from my friend because I realized it wasn't about me. It was about grabbing a hold of my friend's dream and helping him to achieve it. And I told him, I said, Eric, I don't know if I'm strong enough to get to the top, but I know I'm strong enough to help you get there. If I can get you to Camp 1, I know I've played a role, I've had a purpose in this climb. Camp 2, great, the summit, unimaginable, but I want to see you succeed. And in grabbing a hold of his dream, I was actually one step closer to achieving my own. Well, we set out for Mount Everest, and maybe this is how you feel. As you chart the course for your life, the decisions that are looming ahead, they seem huge, maybe treacherous. They're like crossing this flimsy ladder over a bottomless crevasse. Maybe that's how it feels. But imagine being blind. You're at 19,000 feet. You've got on a heavy pack, steel crampons. It's hard to breathe. Would you go alone? Or would you want a well-equipped team there to support you and lead you along the way? Put yourself in these shoes. Too far. So I think I heard some people saying, I wish I could do that. And the cool thing is with Mr. Engel, we've actually got ladders on the roof. And if you want credit for being here today, you need to grab a blindfold, and then we're going to walk across okay, that's not true. Let's do it. I know some of you would be like, yeah, I'm all over it. Sure, you bet. But you can see when you bring passion to what it is you do, you act in integrity and belief, and you take action on it. And then you surround yourself with a good team that supports and believes. You really can stand on top of the world. I've seen my friend do it. I've seen many people achieve things that I thought were unimaginable. And it all just starts with that one step. And then it continues. You have to persevere. It's never going to be easy. Don't quit. Keep going. What's it take to persevere? Well, you have to have a passion. You have to care about what it is that you're doing. You have to have faith in the purpose for which you started. Without that, it's just too easy to quit. Usually there's a bit of risk involved, but stay strong, stay tough, have the mental stamina to persist in it and to see it through. With that, you can stand on top of the world. I got to see my friend then make the cover of Time magazine. I'm not at all jealous of the fact that I'm standing right there. Just happy for him and the fact that you can see the rope that connects him to me. Well, that's not why I climbed. I didn't ever think we'd make the cover of Time or even care. I just wanted to see him stand on top of the world. I guess I got that from my friend Joseph, to make a difference in the world around me. And what he was able to accomplish has. It's inspired others to seek after their own goals and dreams. If I could challenge you today, it's to pursue what you love indeed, but if that doesn't lead to where you want it, love what you do. Bring passion to the things that you do. If you find somebody here that seems to offer a job for you that's a good fit, take it. Apply some passion, love it. It's just a stepping stone to the next thing, perhaps. And follow these chapters as they unfold and see what's next. Bring passion to what it is you do. Serve your community with integrity and character. And then lastly, surround yourself with a team that supports and believes in you and believe in them just as well. With that, you can climb to great heights. Thanks for your time.